Hello, everyone, and welcome to Center for Spiritual Living Rogue Valley in Medford, Oregon. I'm Kimberly Hawkins, Spiritual Director here, and we are all delighted that you've decided to join us for our Sunday celebration. We're an inclusive, progressive spiritual community, and we absolutely welcome you no matter where you may happen to be on your own personal spiritual journey. Today is a rather special and a little bit bittersweet day in that this is our last broadcast from our offices here in Midtown Medford. We've been here for the last almost 2 years during COVID with an amazing crew to support this broadcast. Next week, we will be meeting in person at our new space, which we'll be sharing with Medford Unity. So we are excited, of course, to be meeting there in person. We're asking people to call or email us to make a reservation. More on that in a little bit. We're delighted this morning to have Anton Miserak and Laura Berryhill as our musicians. Wendy Wellborn is our practitioner who will be delivering our invocation and reading in just a moment. And holding high watch from home is Reverend Michelle Ariano, who as of March 1st will be our co-spiritual director. She and I will be co-ministers and will be officiating next week at the service at Unity together. So lots of changes, lots of good coming our way. For right now, I'm going to invite everyone to take our collective deep breath as we go once again to Anton Miserak and Laura Berryhill to prepare us for our invocation and reading.
A song by Paramahansa Yogananda.
I invite you now to take a deep breath and close your eyes. And I'm going to invite you to feel all of the feelings that you have. It's been a distressing week, and you should have all those feelings. And I'm going to ask you to breathe in And then release. And breathe in again and release. And now I invite you to open the door to your heart, knowing that over and above all those feelings of distress and all the chaos, in and through and around us is one divine being of perfect unconditional love. And in that doorway, this love flows in and transforms us into the highest and best that we can possibly be. And then that transformation moves from us in the form of love and energy and peace. And it connects us each to each other because we are unified in the one. There is no separation. So we, in our connection, become a network of love. And every time you contact someone this week, today, in that love, you move that love into them and transform them until we have covered the entire world in love and peace. The love and peace that is divinely created and divinely guided, even in the face of all chaos and all distress. We are blessed to know this truth. I am blessed to know this truth for you if you cannot know. And as this energy moves forward in the flow, that blessing moves forward and everything works perfectly for that divine right purpose that we cannot see. We are loved and we are guided. And for that I am so grateful. And I release this prayer knowing that it is so, and our network of love moves forward. And we say together, and so it is. Today I have 2 affirmations and a reading to share with you. These were on my heart all week. The first affirmation is my favorite one, and if you've had a class with me, you've heard me say it out loud. It is, fear is faith in the wrong thing. And I use this whenever I have anxiety about school, about life, about abundance, whatever it is, and it calms me. But I found something out in preparation for this service. I found the original quote that it comes from, and it makes it that much more powerful. It is from Craig Groeschel, and it says, fear actually relies on faith. It is simply faith in wrong things. Fear is placing faith in the what-ifs rather than God is. I'm just going to take a moment to let that settle onto my body. Then there is a second affirmation that I've been working all through February with the group online, and it's awkward, I'll just be honest. But it's really powerful. So when you say this to yourself, if it works for you, let it settle over your consciousness and do the work inside of you. It's from Bob Proctor. Fear and faith demand you believe in something you cannot see. You choose. And from a reading from my current favorite teacher, not in person, but through books, Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel. And this is from his book, God in Search of Man, which the title is so inviting in and of itself. But Rabbi Heschel is talking about the Hebrew word yirah. And this is what it means. According to the Bible, the principal religious virtue is yirah. What is the nature of yirah? The word has 2 meanings, fear and awe. There is the man who fears the Lord, lest he be punished in his body, family, or in his possessions. Another man fears the Lord because he is afraid of punishment in the life to come. Both types are considered inferior in Jewish tradition. Job, who said, "Though he slay me, yet will I trust him," was not motivated in his piety by fear, but rather by awe, by the realization of the grandeur of God's eternal love. Fear is the anticipation and expectation of evil or pain, as contrasted with hope, which is the anticipation of good. And personally, I would say, and contrasted with faith faith, which is the knowledge that good is yours and available to you. But back to Rabbi Heschel. Awe, on the other hand, is the sense of wonder and humility inspired by the sublime, or felt in the presence of mystery. Awe, unlike fear, does not make us shrink from the awe-inspiring object, but on the contrary, draws us near to it. This is why awe is comparable to both love and joy. In a sense, awe is the antithesis of fear. And from the Psalms, he writes, and these are from the JPS Tanakh, so don't be surprised if your King James is not the same. From Psalm 27:1, the Lord is my light and my salvation. To feel this is to feel, whom should I fear? And from Psalm 46:2 and 3, God is my refuge and my strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear, though the earth do change, and though the mountains be moved into the heart of the seas. And so it is.
We're all in it together, it's true as they say. Still confusion abounds as we seek the right way. I wonder sometimes what this world's coming to, and try to imagine what would Jesus do. Saying all is well and it's as it should be is easy when things are all pretty and clean. But when I think things aren't happening how they're supposed to, I try to imagine what would Jesus do. What would he say about the homeless and hungry? What would he do about the beggar and thief? What would he say to the drunk and drug addict, or the young girl selling herself on the street? Do you think he'd see heavenly perfection underneath their earthly shell? Through the veil of confusion to what is true, that's what Jesus would do. Could all embrace our Christ presence and learn to forgive 10 times and again, and in each face see their divine essence, we can change the world without from within, and realize heavenly perfection underneath each earthly shell. Through the veil of confusion to what is true, I believe that's what Jesus would do. I believe that's what Jesus would do.
Lovely. Laura and Anton, thank you so much. I had prepared a talk earlier in the week, and with things changing so rapidly, I'm in a different place this morning than I was when I sat down to compose some notes about what I wanted to say. And if you follow the news at all, I'm guessing that, like me, you had at least moments this week where you felt very heavy-hearted at the news of what's going on in Ukraine and the invasion by Russian troops. So what has happened as I've contemplated this and sat with the feelings, first of all, as Wendy so beautifully encouraged us to do, I think that we need to feel the feelings. We can't move past them and hear what is ours to do without feeling feelings first. So if you've been in that place or you're still in that place, I invite you to simply accept it and go with it. It's when we know we're connected, we know that when one part of the human body hurts, we all hurt, and that is as it should be. But I've also realized as the week has gone on and I've paid attention to the news, which I do, by the way, because we know that everything we see on the outside is created by what's on the inside. And so it's important that we know what's going on in the world, because it's a clue not only for where prayer is needed, but it's also a clue of where we need to transform ourselves and our own consciousness, because we co-create what is going on in the world. It's quite easy to blame the villain, to hate Putin, for example, if that's where you're at. It's quite easy and it's quite human to do that. But hating anybody does not help. Hate does not drive out hate. I think it was MLK said. Only love can do that. But what I've noticed in the midst of these feelings of tenderness for the Ukrainian people, in the midst of fear about what might happen with this conflict that's the biggest conflict since World War II in Europe, what I've noticed is out of the worst times, always, the best of humanity emerges as well, right? We saw this after 9/11, and we're seeing this now. The best is emerging. Truth is being revealed, and that truth is that we are one. We cannot be separate from one another. And so I was uplifted to see, for example, as you may have seen, famous landmarks throughout the world lit up this week in blue and yellow, the colors of the Ukrainian flag. People standing in union, in solidarity with Ukraine and for peace. We saw this, for example, on the Empire State Building, the Brandenburg Gate in Germany, the Eiffel Tower, and even in as far away in Australia, the blue and yellow lights shining. I've been moved by the protests that tens of thousands of Russian people have engaged in, that don't want war, that want peace. And they're doing so at the risk of being, and some of them already have been, arrested and imprisoned for charges as serious as terrorism. The bravery and the standing together is heartwarming. I also became aware this week of something I didn't know, and maybe you don't, of a recent trend, if you will, in the pro tennis world, where at the end of a match, when a tennis player wins, it's tradition to go to one of the cameras that's been covering, handling the TV coverage of the event, and writing a message with a marker on the lens. So for example, Naomi Osaka, her trademark message is to draw a little cat, cartoon of a cat. An Italian star recently won his match despite suffering from the stomach flu. And he went up to the camera afterwards and wrote, "Thank you, Imodium. Imodium grazie," which was a bit of humorous touch to this story. But this week, in a pro tournament in Dubai, the Russian player, Andrei Rublev, he's ranked seventh in the world, I understand, won his match that sent him to the finals. Didn't say anything when he finished. He didn't throw his racket in the air or celebrate or hoot or holler, none of that. He simply walked quietly up to the nearest camera lens and wrote, "No war, please. No war, please." Which is really a prayer, right? It's really a prayer that he engaged in, and I might add, at the risk of some repercussions, because he is a Russian, and it's not cool to be against this war. In another incident in the pro tennis world, Russian player in Mexico, who I believe is ranked #1 in Russia, while he was playing his match, his wife was in the stands watching, and the cameras panned to her, and she was sitting there wearing blue and yellow, the colors of the Ukrainian flag. So very touching. I was also moved by the courage of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who was offered an airlift out of the country to escape because he surely is a target of the Russian forces, and he refused. And instead, he's standing in the streets with his people, saying to the camera at one point, "This may be the last time you see me alive, but I'm standing here for our democracy, for our people, for our freedom." Wow. And then the nations of the world coming together, you know? All of them, even former allies of Russia, refusing to condone this invasion, refusing to vote against the censure, for example, in the United Nations. Even China abstained rather than vote against it. Yeah. So again, the best coming out, you know? And what can we do? I think we can feel our feelings. We can remember that we are one. We don't need to shut out this news. We need to move through it, but we need to be praying. We need to be standing for peace, and we need to realize that consciousness creates. So the more we can stand for peace in our own lives, simple things, like being at peace with people that we may be in conflict with, in our families, in our workplaces, in our personal lives, to be a stand for peace, not for revenge, not for hate, not for otherizing or making the other person the villain. That does not promote peace on the planet. And I think we're being given a picture of where the work is for each of us to do internally. In Paul's letter to the Romans in the New Testament, he wrote, "Be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind." And I think that's what we're called to do right now, is to renew our minds to see, as so many are expressing, our oneness, our goodness, our holiness, each and every one of us. So when we pray for world leaders, we're praying for Putin too, not praying for the success of what he thinks he wants, but praying that he embodies the godling, the God goodness that he is as well. Praying that each of our world leaders are led by that inner voice of goodness, of love, of the understanding that we are all one. So the title of the message this morning that was suggested for Centers for Spiritual Living across the globe, oddly enough, this title was chosen months ago, is The Ultimate Fear Buster. The Ultimate Fear Buster. And I think that's a good topic for right now, because as we stand in the midst of this conflict in Europe, knowing that there are 15 nuclear reactors in Ukraine, knowing that there's been threats of, invoking more force, there's fear naturally coming up for many of us. And as Wendy so beautifully pointed out, fear is faith in something else than the goodness, the godliness, the divine order that we know is true. So the ultimate fear buster really, I think, has two prongs to it. One is remembering that God is good, that God is present in every situation, that everything works together for the good for those who recognize the Spirit. Everything works together for the good. So even this conflict can and will, I believe, show us where we need to grow, where we need to shed our fears, our separation, our otherizing somebody, our being victims, because we're never victims. I believe this is here to help us grow. And I'm not condoning what's going on, but if we truly believe God is all there is, then God is all there is, and there is nothing else going on but the activity of the divine. So I think that's part of fear busting, is knowing that we can never be separate from our good. The Course in Miracles, which I've been studying with a new vengeance, if you will, since the first of the year, has been so helpful for me right now through all of this. One of the lessons, and we're in a review right now, is my holiness blesses the world. In other words, the perception of my own holiness does not bless me alone. And let me unpack that a little bit. What the heck does that mean? My holiness blesses the world. When I can recognize, at the first talk of this month, I think my topic was, can I see God in me? When I can do that, when I can see the divine in, as, and through me as the only truth of who I am, then I'm able to know that and see that for every other being on the planet. So as my holiness and the perception of my holiness sinks in, I am in a place to recognize that holiness everywhere I look. My perception, which is often driven by my senses, shifts to a vision, according to the Course, which is God's vision, God's eye view, understanding. There's nothing going on here but the activity of the divine. Another one of the lessons is there is another way of looking at the world. I could see peace instead of this. I think this is particularly applicable when we feel angry at somebody, when we feel we've been a victim of somebody or somebody's wrong or evil. To shift that perception to one of peace. You know, I could see this person's goodness. I could see this another way. When I have compassion for myself, I am much more able to have compassion for somebody else. Now, of course, I'm not saying we have compassion for deeds that are hurting others and we condone that. I'm not saying that. I'm simply saying that we go back to the truth that we are all, without exception, incarnations of that one life, which is God. I wanted to read just a short segment from Lesson 29, which is one of the lessons we were reviewing this week in the Course in Miracles study. Lesson 56 was a review of 5 lessons, including this one. God is in everything I see. Behind every image I have made, the truth remains unchanged. Behind every veil I have drawn across the face of love, its light remains undimmed. Beyond all my insane wishes is my will united with the will of my Father. God is still everywhere and in everything forever, and we who are part of Him will yet look past all appearances and recognize the truth beyond all of them. I love that line. Behind every veil I have drawn across the face of love, its light remains undimmed. And I think that's what we're seeing as we see the lights of the monuments lit up across the world in solidarity with Ukraine, as we see people protesting, as we see that Russian tennis player writing, "No war, please." We're seeing past the veil of what's going on to the truth of the will of God, which is our will as well, which is that we see our oneness and we act from that place of love and oneness. So the first part of the ultimate fear buster is just that, is seeing our oneness, seeing our holiness, and letting that holiness be transmitted to the world, like Wendy really indicated in her beautiful reading and prayer. Now the second part of the ultimate fear buster, I believe, is this. And let me pose it as a little Jeopardy question. It's kind of a long Jeopardy question, but I know you'll humor me in this. So this would be a question asked in the category probably of science and religion. And let's say it's for $1,000. What is the ancient medicine or simple practice that delivers all the following benefits? And here they are. You'll sleep easily, awake easily, have pleasant dreams, people will love you, the devas, gods or angels, will love you, animals will love you. The devas will protect you. External dangers, such as poisons, weapons, and fire, will not harm you, and your face will be radiant. Anybody? What is that ancient practice? What is loving kindness? Ancient Buddhist practice, taught originally by the Buddha. Many of us know it in its traditional form, which is often the meditation, may I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be happy. And then we say those same phrases for someone we love, for someone that we maybe don't know that well, and even for somebody we have huge challenges with. So for example, Putin. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you be happy. Seeing each person as a divine incarnation, one with all of us, deserving of peace. We know that peaceful people, happy people, don't hurt other people, right? It's people who are hurting, who are not in touch with their own holiness, who treat others as less than holy. Now here's the thing. That's an ancient practice, loving kindness, and it is a fear buster. It is a fear buster because when we let go of animosity, anger, and we only wish. So what is the definition? I should back up a bit. What is the definition of loving kindness? It comes from the Pali word metta, and you've probably heard that meditation called the metta meditation, which basically means goodwill toward everyone and everything on earth, benevolence, love. That's what loving kindness is. And it's not only an ancient practice taught by the Buddha, of course it's in all the major world religions, right? Love your neighbor as thyself. But it's been proven more recently by modern Western science to be effective. Believe it or not, the concept of loving kindness has been the subject of multiple studies, increasingly number of studies by scientists. And here's what those studies have shown. The practice of loving kindness toward everyone will increase your good feelings and decrease your painful feelings. It increases our feelings of social connection, something we all could use coming out of this COVID isolation period. The practice of loving kindness has been shown to decrease migraines, chronic pain, and PTSD. It activates empathy, increases compassion, increases the volume of our gray matter. In other words, it makes us smarter. It slows the biological aging process, makes you a more helpful person, curbs self-criticism, and finally, it's effective even in small doses. Wow. I mean, that sounds like a panacea for anything that ails us and for anything that ails us collectively. This is where it's at, my friends. Letting go of the blame, the finger pointing, the judgment, and going back to this knowing that we're one, we can't be separate, and that we have benevolence and loving kindness for every being on the planet. You know, there's a beautiful story, if I can remember it, enough to tell you. It's about a man, and he's an elderly man, and he's at the doctor's office for a checkup. And right as soon as he gets there at 9 o'clock, he's telling the nurses and everybody that he doesn't have a lot of time, that he has an important appointment to make it to. So they're trying to, shuffle him along to get him through the process. And in the course of the test that they're doing with him, one of the nurses says to him, "What is this appointment?" And he goes, "Well, I have an appointment to go see my wife." And the questioning and the conversation continues, "Well, where is she?" "Well, she's in a memory care home." "Oh, my goodness. Well, she must really look forward to your visits." And he goes, "Well, no. Actually, she hasn't recognized who I am in a couple years now." And the nurse says, "Really? And yet you go every day and you're in a hurry to get there to see her?" And he goes, "Oh, yes. She may not remember who I am, but I remember who she is." Wow. I remember who she is. I think that's what we're called to do for everyone, no matter how difficult it may be right now, is to remember who they are. Again, it doesn't mean we condone hurtful behavior. It doesn't mean we say war is okay, but we remember who each person is, because when we have that consciousness collectively, you see, that's what we begin to see outwardly. War will end. The beginnings of war will end if we as a collective can do this practice of loving kindness. I firmly believe that. Tara Brach tells a favorite story of hers is about this golden Buddha in Southeast Asia that was covered over at one point because there were invaders and they were afraid they would destroy the Buddha, so it was covered with mud. And for centuries, everybody thought it was ugly. And then at one point, cracks began to develop in the mud, and they began to see flashes of this gold inside. And so she likes that as a metaphor that, we get covered over. We get covered, our hearts get hardened. We get covered over by defense mechanisms. We want to blame somebody and we want to get angry, or we turn that anger inward and feel guilty. And yet inside, we are that light, that gold. Not only we are that, but each person who is covered over by their defense mechanisms and their aggressions are that gold. I love that reminder. So fear, one of my favorite acronyms for fear is false evidence appearing real. False evidence. Remember, what we see with our senses is not the truth with a capital T. Our vision, our God's eye view, is to remember that we cannot be separate, that we are one, that we stand in unity as children of the Most High, every single one of us. And as we learn to forgive and to practice loving kindness, we shift our own consciousness, and collectively we shift what we see in the world. That's our job right now. I think that is our most important job. When I was journaling, which I often do when I do the Course in Miracles work in the morning, when I hit a passage that particularly moves me, I'll jot down the phrase and then I'll say tears. And it was interesting because this week when I looked through my tears at my writing, what I saw was fears. And I had the thought that when we practice loving kindness, when we go back to spiritual truth with a capital T, our fears turn to tears. In other words, we get to release the old beliefs that we formed, the old crusty defensive mechanisms like that Buddha had around him that we have around us. Our heart melts, and our fears through our tears turn to love, the ultimate fear buster, love and knowing our oneness. We have a constricted view of the world, you know, when we're in that fear. We don't see things the way they truly are. So the first step is our awareness, to recognize when an emotion arises, to identify it, and to understand that we need to move through it, we need to feel it, but we have the ability to choose love over fear, to be in that love-busting position. As we change, our world changes. If we are better, our children will be better, yes? Our family will be better, and the world will be better. So what I offer us all today is hope and faith and love. Let's go into prayer. As I breathe in love and breathe out fear, I breathe in that knowing that we are one, that we are all God's creations, individual, unique, wonderful creations of that divine presence. I breathe out any idea that we can be separate. I know God is everywhere present, everywhere. And I know that even in the most trying of times, that benevolence, that presence, that goodwill, that goodness, that kingdom of God is available right where we are. That everything works together for the good. And the more we recognize that, pray that, live that, speak that, the more we see it, the more we see peace instead of war, the more we see love instead of hatred or conflict. And the more we feel it, just as those studies show, in our bodies, we sleep better, we dream more peacefully. Everything in our holy body temple functions as it should. And we are guided and able to listen to what is ours to do. It's so easy to feel powerless. We are never powerless. We are powered by the divine presence, the divine guidance, the divine connection. So when we allow ourselves to get quiet, we hear. Perhaps it's a simple word we're called to share with someone. Perhaps it's a word we're called not to share, of condemnation and hatred and judgment about ourselves or about others. It can be so simple, not easy necessarily, but so simple. So today, my call, my invitation for all of us is to open our hearts wide, open the door of my heart. Allow me to practice oneness, practice loving kindness, trust and have faith that the power that created us all knows how to resolve any conflict, both within, and as it's resolved within, it is also resolved without. I vow to have faith I vow to feel my feelings and let God be its powerful self through everything that's going on within our hearts and within our world. I bless the people of Ukraine. I bless the people of Russia. I bless all our world's leaders, knowing they have the ability to be guided and led for the highest and best good of each one on the planet. I bless each heart and each mind listening to this talk, praying that we open our hearts constantly. It may be something we need to do every morning, again and again and again. As we open our hearts, we open the pathway to the divine. Not to enter because it's already there, but we open the pathway for it to be felt and for it to be the basis upon which we make our decisions, from which we speak on a daily basis. In gratitude to know our oneness, in gratitude for the world's coming together, seeing its oneness, understanding its oneness, in gratitude for the growth that's happening in each one of us, in gratitude for peace, I speak a word of peace right now, right here, in my heart and in the world. May peace be with each of us. I just release this word knowing it's heard, it is answered, and we say together, and so it is.
How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul.
Thank you once again, Laura and Anton. Time in our service now to turn our attention to the sacred giving, the spiritual practice of sacred giving. First of all, a thank you to everyone who's continued to support us through this COVID isolation period that we are now coming out of. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you as well for those who have contributed to our special fund to help with our moving and setup expenses at the new church, which is Unity. And I want you to know that we have received generous outpouring of help, and we are still open to offering more. So if you feel so called to make an extra donation toward the moving fund, you can do that online. Let's say our affirmation together, shall we? Graciously I give from a place of love, knowing that as I give, so do I richly receive, and that is so the truth. As always, there are several ways to give on our website, cslroguevalley.org, on our Facebook page, or mailing a check. We always welcome checks as well. Several announcements. The big one is we will be meeting in person next Sunday, March 6th at Unity in Medford at 10:30 a.m., our regular time. We will also be broadcasting live as always. We are asking people to reserve a spot. We want to make sure that we have a little bit of space because we're still under COVID guidelines. So if you can email us at cslroguevalley@gmail.com or give us a call. Our number's on the website or on our newsletter. We would love to know that you're going to be joining us. We are asking people to be masked for now. And upon entry, you can choose a color beads that indicate your willingness to have contact. Red Mardi Gras beads means I'm going to love you from a distance for now. Yellow or gold Mardi Gras beads will mean ask me and I might want to hug you. And green Mardi Gras beads mean I have a mask on, you have a mask on, I'd like to hug. So we are so looking forward to that reunion. Yes, you can sign up for our newsletter on our Facebook page under email, or email us again at cslroguevalley@gmail.com. And let's see, prayer requests as always accepted on our website. I think that's it for now. Just blessing this building and blessing the crew, and I'll mention them when we close. Right now, let's go to our closing song with Anton and Laura.
In this moment, in this place, I remember who I am, letting fear and worry fall away from me. I open my eyes and see there is only love. There is only love. Love that heals, love that sets me free. There is only love.
When I lose myself, when it seems I've lost my way, when I go inside and quiet my mind, I can hear Spirit gently say, there is only love. There is only love.
Love that heals, love that sets me free. There is only love. And I hear this voice of love. It is singing through my life. It is all I am, every part of me.
It is all I choose to be.
There is only love. There is only love. Love that heals, love that sets me free. There is only love. There is only love. There is only love. Love that heals, love that sets me free. There is only love. Love that heals, love that sets us free. There is only love.
Thank thank you, Anton and Laura. And a final big thanks to the crew who has kept us going every Sunday via the airwaves during this COVID isolation period. So I want to recognize, and I hope you'll honor with me, Bill and Connie Miner, Jason Rummel, Shannon Schnibbe, Vivian Lacey, Tom Frederick, our sound engineer, and Ben Rummel, who is not here today, but who has been here many Sundays. Without you, we could not have kept in touch with our community. So as we say goodbye for now, I look forward to seeing you next Sunday at Unity in person at 10:30 or online if that's what you prefer to do. And I leave you with the beautiful words from the peace song. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Namaste, my friends.